I don't know how to start this story because I didn't actually like script it out or anything, but the other day I was doing something and I randomly thought of this thing that happened, and thought I'd go ahead and share what I remember because this is actually a mystery in my life. Never learned what happened, and I feel like I'll never know, and that's gonna bug the shit out of me. To set the story, I was in 5th grade, and I think my best friend was in 4th grade. Okay, so I had this huge crush on a guy, and we're gonna call him Brett. The cool thing, that was the thing back in the day, because we had landlines. So me and my best friend called each other all the time, and we would do 3-way calls, which back in the day was where you like go on the other line, you call someone, and then after the 2nd or 3rd ring, you hit the other line again and it connects both, and then your friend would mute their phone, and then you would call the other person's crush and find out if they like them. It was a horrifying experience. And do kids still do that these days? Like, can you 3-way call on an iPhone? I think maybe they fucking screenshot shit. Do they screenshot like a DM or something? Or do you guys just be like, oh yeah, like here's a picture of my dick and do you like me? How do kids do it now? I don't understand. Okay, when I was 10, this is how we did it. We didn't have cell phones. They weren't around. So there. We had to actually call the crushes like house line. It was horrifying because sometimes the parents would pick up. Now, at my house, we had a house line and we had a kids line. So the house line had several lines where you could pick up on it. I think there was like 3. And then the kids line just had 1. It was 1 phone that we all shared. So this weird thing started happening. When we were talking to each other, we started hearing weird beeps and stuff. Like it sounded like someone was on the line. Sometimes only I would hear it. It was extremely strange. And then sometimes we would hear talking. Like someone was like whispering. Sometimes they would only talk to one of us. And it was like this guy, like talking. This is so weird. I've never talked about it. Don't know how it led to this point, but eventually whoever this person was started calling us, like calling our phone and talking to us outside of the conversation. And so he would call and say, who's Brett? Now I probably should have thought about that. It doesn't sound anything like him really. It just sounds like a generic boy. He would leave messages on my voice, oh god, I was about to say my voicemail, on our answering machine that it recorded. So sometimes he'd be like, oh, call me back at, this number, and it was like I could never get a hold of him, but he would talk to me and said he would like me or whatever. Oh, one of the things that happened was Brett moved away. I had no way of talking to him, but he was talking to me, and it would not have been hard at this point to get my number, because if you looked us up in the phone book, we are the only one with my last name. So there was 2 lines and they were both ours. So we were doing this weird talking. Sometimes he would call my best friend and say that it was Brett, and leave a number or try and leave messages with her, if I wasn't picking up. And it was a really strange thing. When it started getting weirder was talking to one of my friends, different friend at school, and I was like, oh yeah, I've been talking to Brett or whatever, and she's like, really? He moved, I have his number. And she told me the number, and it obviously was not any of the numbers that I had been calling. And she eventually told me, she's like, yeah, I talked to him, he says he hasn't called you. Okay. Who the fuck have I been calling and talking to? So one of the times that he calls, I go, dude, you are not Brett. I was like, I talked to him and this is not you. He said, he had never talked to me. Who the fuck? Well, I didn't say that. I'm 10. I was like, who are you? He's like, my name is Gunther. Obviously not, but at least I had something to call him, right? He's like, oh, my name is Gunther. And I was just like, what the fuck? I was like, can you stop calling me? I was like, this is weird. I don't like it. Just stop. And he's like, no, or whatever. And so every time I would talk to my best friend, he would get on the line. I was like, oh, it must be on my friend's line. Like, he must be getting in through that way, because I was like, it's not happening to any of the other calls. And you could tell when he was there, because like it would click, or you could like just hear someone, like, and it made me, he would just bring up details about our lives. It's not fucking creepy at all. And there'd be times where we'd think, we're like, oh my god, he's not on the line, and we would talk about stuff, and then be like, oh, you know, oh my god, guess what Mark did today? And he would come in and be like, what did Mark do? And you don't realize how much you feel like your privacy is invaded when you realize that there's someone always listening. Some random stranger listening in on your phone call when you're 10. Do you know how important being 10 is? Talking with your girlfriend, it's sacred. It's sacred. And some of the things he would bring up were from a long time ago. So he had been listening for a long time to me, and to us. We were 10, and I would get so mad, and of course I wasn't telling anyone, because that's what kids do, they don't talk about it. And I would get so upset, and I'd be so scared to talk about anything, because he would just bring up things that he knew things, like he knew where he lived, he knew the names of everyone in my family. There was no Google. Like, you couldn't just Google these things and find it out, or look at my Facebook or Instagram. This was where they had to go to a phone book to find my name and address, and go out of their way to figure out each and every one of my siblings' names. And then he started saying creepy things, like he was living in the basement across the street, and he kept saying that he was coming into my line. You know, why he's like, oh, only you can hear me. And I'm racking my 10-year-old brain with what I know and what I still know. How the fuck did he get on my line? This was a landline. Like, the only way you could get on the line is if you plugged into it, or you did a 3-way call. And it cost 50 cents each, and my dad got really mad when I used it a lot. So if he had been using like a 3-way call or something, it would have shown up on our bill, and my dad would have yelled at me, because he would have known it was me. So to the people that might know, please leave me a comment. Do you know how on earth he got onto my fucking landline? Because I don't understand how that is physically possible. And it scares me, because if I had been a little more stupid, he could have just said, hey, this is Brett, can you come by the mall? And the mall was across the street. I could have just had my mom drop me off with my friend, and we would have met this guy. Because I would have been like, he's my crush, I need to go. It was one of those towns where you don't think, and the way this ended was one day he's saying all this stuff and being scary. I'm gonna be honest, being scary, being creepy. Start yelling at him to leave me alone. I'm crying, and I kind of tell my sister quickly that I'm like, this guy's on the phone and he won't get off. He keeps, you know, listening in on the phone. And she goes on, and I guess he's talking to her and saying all this shit, and she just screams at him to leave us alone, hangs up on him, and I guess he stopped. I don't know. I think, if I remember right, she threatened to call the police. It made me so paranoid to talk on the phone for the longest time, because I always thought he was there. I always felt like he was waiting to listen to me and then use something against me or come after me. And we eventually got rid of that particular line. We didn't use it as much. No one was really calling it anymore, and so we got rid of it, because we all got these. I never found out who did it. No one owned up to it, and I never figured out how he did it. And I actually asked my friend, and she doesn't really remember it, but I remember it. Jesus. Yeah, so if you have any idea how this is possible, or how it was possible at the time, please let me know. And this may be a fucking long shot, but if it was you, if you were pranking me as a kid, that's fine. I'm completely fine with with it, or if your friend did it and you know about it, and this racks a memory or something, please let me know. For one reason is why. That's not as important as how you did it, because that's what really gets me. I don't think you realized how scary you were to me when I was 10. And thinking about that, let's say it wasn't a 10-year-old boy, but a grown-ass man listening to two 10-year-olds talk about boys and know enough information about them to find them. Because they would know exactly what schools I was going to, things that I was doing, where we were going. Please just tell me, because it's actually much scarier not knowing. It could have been really bad, and my parents didn't know, and I've never told them how easily he got everything from me and used it against me to manipulate me. And it was very easy because I was 10. And it scares me because it's so much easier to trick little girls and boys. And they fall for it because it can be so much more realistic. People can be scary.